Welcome to Monster Chats, presented by Monster VoIP, where we share the tools, methods, and best practices that business leaders use to build new connections, strengthen relationships, and impact sales in organizations of all shapes and sizes. If you have any questions that come up during today's episode, please text them to 424-378-6966. Please welcome the founder of Monster VoIP, your host, Colin Mitchell.
On today's episode, I'm going to be talking with Harrison Tang of Spokeo. Harrison and I are going to be talking about self-funding your startup, knowing when to pivot your business model, and giving financial downturn lessons from 2008, and you can apply to the 2020 recession. I'm Colin Mitchell, the host of Monster Chats and the founder of Monster VoIP. Harrison is the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Spokeo. He started Spokeo with his college roommate, Mike Daly, the CTO, and Eric Liang, the CIO, in 2006. In his parents' basement in 2006, and serves as Spokeo's Chief Executive Officer. Harrison guides Spokeo's product vision to build an experienced team that helps the company realize its mission of making the world around us more transparent. Under his leadership, Harrison has helped build and scale Spokeo's user base from zero to serving tens of millions of users. He is passionate about building products and help customers get their jobs done. Harrison, welcome to Monster Chats. How you doing?
No, thank you. Thank you, Colin, for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you. I think pretty much everybody knows who Spokeo is. So I'm really excited to kind of just learn about some of those early days of Spokeo and how it's become what it is today. So just before we kind of dig into some of those things, tell us a little bit about your story and kind of where it all started.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Taiwan and I came to the United States when I was 13. And actually, looking back, that is actually the hardest experience or the challenge I have to overcome, like not knowing English and then going to a new culture that I completely don't understand. And actually, when I was in Taiwan, I was a pretty good student. So I was top of the class. And suddenly you throw this like teenager, right, into an environment where he doesn't even know what the teachers are saying. That was a very, very tough change, going from, for lack of a better term, top of the clouds and then just fall down to earth right away. So that was I think that's probably the hardest challenge I have to overcome compared to, applying for college and, starting a company and all the other challenges I have to face later on. So I did that. I grew up in Northern California in a little town called Saratoga, California. And just kind of learning my way through, I remember at first I was just like copying English dictionaries because I feel like if I have to read a book and I don't even know what the storyline is, might as well just copy dictionaries because they all,
why not? Why not, right?
a book and a dictionary is basically the same because there are so many vocab. So I was doing that, and then actually later on, when I got a little bit better, I started reading Jane Austen, and people are actually quite surprised, like why I wouldn't say favorite, but my most well-read authors, Jane Austen, is actually because Jane Austen liked to use a lot of SAT-2 vocabs. So, so I was reading Jane Austen for English and things like that. And then I got into Stanford, right? And then originally as an economics major, once I saw something called hologram, and I was really intrigued. And then so I started looking up coursework and trying to understand what classes do I need to take in order to understand how this thing works. And I realized I either have to be an electrical engineer or applied physics to actually understand how this works. I eventually picked electrical engineer because I figured if this route doesn't work, at least I can have a nice sounding title or major that can get a job, right? So I began a double major in electrical engineer and also economics. But my specialty is actually in optics. And then toward the end of my college career, my professor actually told me that his life lesson is don't bet against silicon. And I got the point, and I can go into hours why he said that, but that was a very, very actually life-changing sentence because it was so deep. And I realized that I either have to make a commitment to stay in academics for a long time, or I have to do something new. So, and I decided to do something new, and that's why I started Spokeo.
Mm-hmm. Wow. All right. So let's go back for a second. So when you first, moved here, and you, basically resorted to copying the dictionary, it seems like you were a very curious kid, right? Because, and you talked about a couple of challenges, but you just really had drive to seek out information or get those answers to be better at things that maybe, were very difficult for you.
Yeah. I really want to know the why. Actually, one of our 6 company core value is ask the why. And actually there's a very famous TED talk about the difference between why, how, and what. Most people actually just ask the question of what are you doing? But actually the most important thing in that three words, right? The center of the question is actually why, right? And I think for the longest time, I've just really want to know why. And maybe it's a natural curiosity, or maybe it's just because my parents, for example, they never asked me what grade I got, but rather they asked me, did I put in my efforts, right? Actually, that question is actually more about how than why. But my point is, I think my upbringing has always been focusing on the how and why. But for example, when some parents are teaching the kids about math, they only care about the answer, right? But my parents always want to know the equation. How do you get to that answer? Right? So maybe it's part of my natural curiosity, or maybe it's just the way I was brought up. I'm always very, very curious about the why. Why are people doing things? Why are we doing what we're doing? And I think that has been driving me, and that's actually one of our 6 core values.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so talk to me about when you went to Stanford and then decided to start Spokeo. What type of conversations did you have with your parents about that?
Yeah. So when I told them that, they were like, okay, sure, go try. And then I tried to get some funding. No one wants to give us money, right? Give me money, because I was just literally right out of college or something. Actually, at that time, not even completely graduated from my master's. So no one wants to give us money. So I have to go to my parents for funding. And actually, surprisingly, they say, okay, so they give us funding. But little do I know, it's only a couple years on, about 2-3 years on, when we almost ran out of money twice, and I have to go back to my dad, that I realized that, actually, when I told my dad, hey, sorry to be a bad son, I'm running out of money, so I'm jumping ahead by about 2-3 years. I said, hey, sorry to kind of waste your money being a bad son. He's like, the first thing he said to me is, no, it's okay, right? Because when I give it to you, I already written it off. So that's how much confidence that he has in me when I first started.
Wow.
So only then I realized it was actually my mom, because my dad is like, our son really needs to go get a real job and get some experiences before starting a company. And it's actually my mom and say, hey, Harrison is actually not trying to ask for money to buy a car or something like that. Why don't you just give him a chance, right? So, but that's actually, that I only found out later on. Yeah. But when I first started, it was like, okay, they gave it to us, and and I'm very, very grateful for that. Mm-hmm.
And your first office was at your parents' house, right?
Yeah, that was an interesting story because I just, you when you first started, you want to keep your burn rate low, right? In fact, you probably want to keep your burn rate infinite because you know because if your burn rate is not is is high, then you're not going to survive that long, right? So so actually, we didn't pay ourselves salary. We're just living in my parents' house, and then the office is in the basement. And then when we have challenges, we're just playing video games and things like that. So actually, the first real office is because we got it in Mountain View, right outside of my parents' basement. It's because my dad just couldn't uh, handle it anymore. And he said, "Go get a real office and go pay yourself real salary because I want it to hurt, right? So if it fails, I want it to hurt, right? Because if you just like stay around and you have infinite runway, then you're not going to run fast." So actually, it's my dad who kicked us out of the first office, which is the basement, and go actually rent a very, very small office in Mountain, California. Mm-hmm.
And how pivotal do you think that moment was where it really did teach you that you guys, what did you do differently at that point? Do you think that was a pivotal moment for Spokeo?
I think so, because mentally it's different, right? Because now you are burning. Actually, another thing my dad did is he actually got my uncle to invest a little bit too, because he said, if you waste my money, it might not hurt as bad as you waste other people's money too. So he actually got my godfather and uncle to put in some too. So
I'm taking really good notes right now, because if any of my kids want to be entrepreneurs, I'm going to have some good examples of from your father.
Yeah. So some people are really, really motivated to start a company or to make money. I'm not actually. So I think different people need different kinds of education or methods, because different people are motivated by different things. For example, I'm naturally curious about different things. So you don't have to ask me to read a book or go read Wikipedia when I have questions about certain topic, right? I would do it myself. But then building a business, starting a company, right? Like trying to make a lot of money, like that, I don't have as much drive as some other people. So I think in this case, my parents used this kind of tactic, right, to actually get me to run faster, right? Because otherwise, when we hit an obstacle, we're just playing, like at that time we're playing Warcraft 3 or something like that. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, that was your method for dealing with stress.
Yeah, exactly. We're like, and my parents like, I thought you guys are working. It was like, oh, we're just taking a break, and then that break like is that 30 minutes becomes like an hour, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think when you are in a separate, and we can actually talk about what is the future of work, because that's a question that a lot of people are having right now. But actually one of the things is that I think the workplace is not going to completely go away, because one of the things having an office is this work-life separation, or should I call it the new mental space? And I think a separate and a new mental space is quite important, because when, for example, right now, this is my bedroom. When you're working in your bedroom, and you have no work-life separation, it's hard to switch the mental states, right? So, and in the case of the early years, when the directions are not as clear, right? And there's no teacher telling you that you have to do this assignment and all that stuff. When you don't have that mental state, when your work is the same as your life, I think for people like me, it's easy to slack off.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to go back for a second, because you said something really interesting You said that, making a lot of money is not what motivates you. So that's not your why. So I would ask you, what is your why? What does motivate you?
Yeah, I think it actually goes to another one of our core values, which is innovate to learn. I always want to learn. And I think the point of innovation is not to win, right? Because winning and innovation doesn't go together, right? Because innovation by definition is you don't know the answer. Mm-hmm. If you know the answer, what kind of innovation is it, right? So that means winning is uncertain. So what is the point of innovation? The point of doing something different is to learn, right? So that you can actually do better and self-improve. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, is like, I like to learn new things, talking about my story from the very, very beginning, learning a new culture, a new language, right? Because I was, my first natural language, Chinese, Mandarin, and I have to learn English. And then I have to learn, learn physics and all that stuff. And then I have to learn, hologram, which is a complete different discipline, optics. And then from optics, I have to learn basically how to build a website, right? CSS and all that stuff. And then I have to learn about digital marketing, performance-based marketing, right? And then I have to learn about how to run customer care operations, data engineering, data analytics, data science. So my story is a journey of learning, right? Learning new and different things. Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. How do each of your co-founders complement one another? And how has that helped Spokeo become what it is today?
Yeah, that's a very interesting story. So my co-founders are actually all my college roommates or dorm mates at some point in time. And I went to Stanford, and how Stanford picked roommates for the first year is they actually send out surveys. Actually, not surveys, basically questionnaires before you actually start, before your freshman year, and ask you about your life habits, your interests, and things like that. And they'll pair you up with a roommate. So it's assigned. You don't pick one. But instead of pairing up someone who shares the same sleeping hours, same interests, same music preferences, and things like that, they pair you with someone that's completely opposite. So my co-founder and my college roommate is someone who used to like and only listens to 60s hard rock, where I listen to what he calls South Asian pop music, right? He used to sleep very early, where I'm a night owl, right? And so on and so on. So he's a complete opposite of me. And that is a fact, because we meet each other not through, actually in some ways through chance, but really through this Stanford apparatus that that pair me up with someone who gives the answer that's complete opposite of me. Wow. So that's how we meet each other. And I think that story really sums up about the Spokeo culture. And in some ways, the secret to success is because we complement each other. And I think the Spokeo culture is one that respects different perspectives, because their co-founders all have different perspectives. In many ways, we all think very, very different. So how do we find a compromise and move forward? And that's the Spokeo way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. So tell me about some of the biggest challenges and pivots that you've dealt with, running Spokeo.
Great. So first of all, we don't pivot at Spokeo. We evolve. So what's different about, I know Silicon Valley like to throw this word pivot around and say, hey, it's hip and it's cool. At Spokeo, we try not to use that word at all. We like to talk about evolve and evolution. And the difference is one respects the past and the other doesn't. It's all about change, but I think pivot utterly disrespects the past and recognizes the hard work that other people put in, and evolve does. It doesn't necessarily mean that we won't change and revamp and actually learn from the past, right? But I think it's just a respect that, hey, even if the past didn't turn out as successful as it is before, there's still a lot of learnings that we can take so that we don't repeat the same mistake. So to sum up, and I just want to clarify, we never pivot. We don't pivot. We evolve, and we constantly evolve, and because there's so many things to learn, right? And talking about the biggest evolution, obviously, is a one that's about survival, right? So in 2008, we were running out of cash. We started out as a social network aggregator. So at that time, Facebook, MySpace, there's a bunch of social networks. Actually, Friendster was number 3. And I don't think most of the young people has even heard of that name. So it was, there's a lot of social networks. And the idea was to create a meta social network, right? A social network aggregator that simplifies people's digital lifestyle. So actually we got to some press like GigaOM, TechCrunch, and all that stuff. And we thought we made it. But the real thing we realized is that, traffic is just the first part of the problem. But how do you monetize that traffic? How do you keep the lights on? That's actually, the next problem that we have to solve.
Were you monetizing the traffic at that point or not yet?
So at first, no. And then because our hypothesis is that, hey, if we have some users, then let's put some ads and we'll be printing money. and then that was a very naive and false hypothesis as we can tell. So so we were trying that. Actually, we tried to put Google AdSense, and then we were making $4 a day. So just about like one Starbucks coffee for 4 of us. So it wasn't. So that's when I actually have to go to my parents, the dumbest investors in the world, right? So for more funding, and yeah, like I mentioned, I think the first thing he said is like, hey, it's all right. When I gave it to you, I already written it off. I already pretend that it's in the trash can. I already know this will happen, right? But the second thing he told me is that, hey, success is not about whether you've gone to Stanford or Ivy League, right? It's actually about who can last till the finish line. So that's what he told me. So we start evolving and figure out, hey, like what are the other ways that this technology, what market that this technology can do, right? And we know we only have like 2 or 3 chances. Otherwise, the funding is going to go out because my parents are not like Bill Gates or anything like that. It's not, even with a very low burn rate, we're not going to last forever, right? So I kind of stumbled across this space called people search because I realized that, wow, there are actually advertisers paying a couple cents per click, right, to advertise on searching for other people. And the idea is just like, why don't we pivot the social network aggregator, the social search engine technology to fit into this space? And we did that. And actually we luckily learned that people, even though they are not willing to pay for their own information, to aggregate their own information, they're willing to pay for looking for other people's information. And that's how we actually evolve and tackle that problem, which is the biggest problem for any startup, right? Product market fit. That's the first time we found the product market fit.
And so what's the most common use that people are, using Spokeo for when they're, looking for people's information?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. So one of the things people don't realize, and to be very frank, I didn't realize in 2008 too. So a lot of these are actually market research done after the fact, okay? But one of the things that people don't realize is 8% of searches online are about people's names, okay? So it is the second biggest search query type behind location. So there's a lot of use cases. And actually our market is quite different. In traditional marketing, right, you start with, let's say you sell shoes and you start segmenting. So it's a very top-down model. In marketing, there's a very famous model called segment, target, position. So it's a very, very top-down thinking, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Our market is a very, very long-tail market, right? Think about, even though you're searching for a name, but the intents and purposes are all different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So our marketing, in retrospect, is actually the reverse of traditional marketing. It's about clustering. And the difference between segmentation and clustering is one is top-down, the other one is bottom-up. So we actually cluster upwards, and we actually cluster it to about 4 key groups, right? Obviously, the first one is consumer versus business professional users. Mm-hmm. But the intent dimension usually is connectors and protectors. So connectors are people looking for contact information to find their long-lost families and friends. In business case, they'll be like finding business leads and so on, right? Protectors, they already know the person. They just want to make sure that the person is who they say they are. So one of the famous bloggers once said, "Spokeo before you date." That's a dating research. Is one of the key protector use case, right? Yeah. And law enforcement, fraud prevention on the business side is one of the key top use cases in the protector side. But long story short, there are a lot of amazing use cases when you're searching for people. You know, we all interact with people online or offline, right? And there's a lot of people intelligence that can enrich these social interactions. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we have to use this very unconventional kind of brand marketing strategy of clustering, right? To identify and cluster our use cases.
Yeah. Do you have any interesting stories of feedback from Spokeo users where they were able to get, very valuable information that saved them from, I don't know, maybe a disastrous relationship or something else?
Yeah, we have a lot. We get about 15 million users a month, right? And then thousands of calls. So obviously we have, probably hundreds of success stories, and actually we probably put out about 10 testimonials a month, right? Mm. So there's a lot of stories, and if you want to learn more, like we can definitely provide a couple. But some of the very interesting ones, like includes, for example, on the business use case ones, like famous automaker use it for to help their recalls, right? Because when there's a recall, they need to contact their customer. So that, when I first heard it, I was like, what? I never heard of such use cases, right? Yeah, and then there are ones that's fine. The very touching ones are people using it to find their long lost, like adoptees finding their biological parents. Those stories are very, very touching. Yeah. Because in many ways, Spokeo is beyond just a connector, right? It's a mean to help people rediscover and understand their identity, right? So those kind of stories are actually probably the most touching ones. And if you're interested, or your audience is interested to learn about these testimonials and stories, we can definitely provide some.
Yeah, those are awesome. That's fantastic. We're going to take a quick break just to tell you what we do here at Monster VoIP. We started Monster VoIP, frankly, because we were sick and tired of getting gouged on our business phone bill and getting dropped calls. So today we serve over 6,000 customers. We're passionate about saving businesses money and giving them the features that they need for today's tech stack. If you want to learn more, you can text info to 424-378-6966. I'm talking with Harrison, the founder and CEO of Spokeo. Harrison, it's been fantastic learning your story of coming to the U.S. and going to Stanford and starting Spokeo and learning more about Spokeo. Tell us what's your vision? What do you see Spokeo evolving to in the future?
So I think before talking about vision, we need to, because vision by definition is about what we want to become in the next X years, right? So vision usually have to have a time frame. So I'm assuming you're asking like a 10-year vision. So it's like what we want to become in the next 10 years. But before we talk about the what, going back to the importance of why, we need to talk about why we're doing what we're doing. And that's actually the definition of mission. And our mission is to make the world more transparent, right? And I think that transparency is not just about data transparency, information transparency. It's all about it's also about contextual transparency, knowledge transparency, and intelligence transparency. And there's all these differences, right? Let me give an example. Data transparency, I just tell you, hey, we generate $10 million. Well, is that good or bad, right? It lacks context, right? If the market is $1 billion, you only generate $10 million, that's terrible, right? But then if your expectation starts from zero to 10 million, that's really a miracle, right? So it lacks context, right? And so Spokeo's mission is to provide transparency, not just about information data, but also contextual, right? And eventually knowledge and intelligence, right? So that's our mission, and our vision follows that, right? We want to build the first people intelligence service that help people, right? That not just organize all these billions of records into easy to understand reports, but to help people better search, connect, and know who they're dealing with. Right? So that's our vision, right? So that this can actually help people, right? Not just understand what's going on about them, have the context of what's going around about them, right? But also helping them understand what information are out there about them. How can they take a step to better manage, control, and protect their own identity? So that's another aspect of our vision as well.
Wow. And so tell me, what's kind of the average amount of data points that are on Spokeo for any one person?
That's a very good question. So first of all, the average has in many ways have two definitions, right? One is mean, the other one is median, right? So on the mean side is about like 20 something, right? 20 something records, I think. Records. Yeah, I need to double check on the exact number, but I think it's on the 20 something. But on the median side, I think it's about 10 or so, right? So obviously, as we actually include even more records and sources, right, this numbers will improve. But then because Spokeo profiles are very, very long tail, very, very, very long tail. So that's a rough number. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you and more about the Spokeo story. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Before I let you go, tell people where they can connect with you online, or where they can find out more, obviously, about Spokeo, or anything else you want to let people know. Yeah,
definitely. So, if you want to connect me, well, first of all, you can always Spokeo me, right? Spokeo Harrison Tang, right? Or you can Google Harrison Tang, right? And then I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, right? And then my email is also very simple, harrison@spokeo.com, right? So if you have questions and things like that, feel free to kind of reach out to me, and I'd love to connect. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe, share with your friends, and we're listening for your feedback. The show is all about you.
Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Monster Chats, presented by Monster VoIP, where we share the tools, methods, and best practices that business leaders use to build new connections, strengthen relationships, and impact sales in organizations of all shapes and sizes. If you have any questions from today's show and want to reach us directly, please text your question to 424-378-6966.